All right, it's time to check the tropics, which have some areas of semi-activity and others that are not active. We'll take a look at the climatology first for October. We usually don't see too much development going on off the coast of Africa out for a ways in the eastern Atlantic, or if things do get to develop, they sort of curve on up to the north generally, not taking the south track or the Cape Verde system track that we saw with Erica, although Erica curved and went out to sea even without hitting the islands directly. But you can get subtropical developments this time of the year. The middle of the Atlantic, the Bahamas, up toward Bermuda. Sometimes a big high will build to the north and low pressure will be on the map. The winds will pick up and then suddenly that low turns tropical and you've got yourself a depression or a storm. A lot of these will curl on up and go out. Sometimes they'll pester the coastline. But you do have that chance of a central Atlantic system moving westward through the Caribbean, or even milling around in the Bay of Campeche like Roxanne did a couple of years ago. And of course, Opal came slamming on into the area around Destin and Fort Walton Beach, Florida 2 years ago, starting close to home. That's where your October developments usually are, rather than being way out in the Atlantic someplace. Less and less the first 10 days of October over the last 110 years or so, 83 storms. Subtropics, east of the windwards and leewards, yes. Eastern Caribbean Sea is not a favored place for development almost any time of the year. Sometimes you'll get them. But the Western Caribbean, the first 10 days of October, very favorable in the Bay of Campeche. That is, on the average, over the last 110 years. This season has been slow, mainly because, or at least correlated to the El Nino warming up of Pacific waters. That correlates with a slow season in the Atlantic Basin. Strong trough, though, moving all the way down toward the Caribbean from about Nova Scotia, Canada, and that tends to quell the threat of tropical development, although we have something brewing just east of that trough. Then we go into a sort of a ridge pattern curling down, and that could allow some development south of the coast of Mexico. Big high over the states, making for an Indian summer-like pattern in the Corn Belt. An upper low, which we've been tracking the clouds of over the last several days, and then a trough that should kill off any takers or any comers from the eastern Atlantic, and we do have one out there that we're looking at. Also, well east of Florida right now, something that looks tropical. It seemed to have some circulation, and a tight little circulation at that on the visible satellite photography during the day, and now some convection, some high and deep convective clouds and rainfall. So it seems to be tropical in nature, a tropical low, but not quite in the intensity stage of depression quite yet. And there are upper level winds that are picking it up and shearing it just a bit. So we don't expect too much out of this, and Bermuda being right about here, even if we did get something, it would go on out to sea and not bother anybody. A strong upper level trough, though, digging on down toward Cuba, firing storms there. Thunder showers, that is. Even Puerto Rico had some severe thunderstorm warnings. Haiti, the Dominican Republic. In the Gulf of Mexico, we have a lot of westerly winds as well. Just a little bit of a ridge at upper levels and a trough at lower levels. Could even be, well, it's similar to a tropical wave, and there's been an awful lot of rain off the Texas Gulf Coast, but too close to the coast, and upper level winds are just not favorable enough for tropical development. Caribbean Sea, once again, kind of stormy in the vicinity of an upper level trough, and almost a small high over the Caribbean with no focused low pressure or activity. And then we get on into the middle and eastern parts of the Caribbean, showing a pretty good tropical wave, oriented something like this, and the western edge of a high pressure system over it. So that would be a favorable area for development. But then we have a strong trough of low pressure at upper levels just to the west, and if anything did develop, it would probably curl off and go into the open Atlantic to the north. Right now, just a pretty good looking tropical wave. Well, we're calling it Olaf. This is a tropical depression that has been traced to a cloud system that came off the Central American coast. Olaf was a tropical storm, and so it's being resurrected as Tropical Depression Olaf, and not really expecting too much out of this. It may drift to the north over the next few days and not a very intense state. Also, some clouds and convection south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec, which may result in a tropical development in a couple of days. Toward Hawaii, there's a weak disturbance well east-southeast of Hilo. Well, stay with us here on the Weather Channel. We'll keep track of Indian summer for you, some really nice weather in the nation's midsection, and also some rainy weather in other sections. You'll want to stay tuned. WeatherScope coming up after your local forecast.
The Weather Channel. No place on earth has better weather.
And let's talk about the tropics. We've got a new tropical depression we'll talk about and show you and give you the latest on that as we investigate all areas Well, we're not going to be talking about the Indian Ocean, but we'll start off here in the Atlantic, Gulf, and Caribbean. These are the favored storm tracks and areas for development during October. And as you can see, we don't have any red out here around the Cape Verde Islands. The Cape Verde season, by the way, generally runs from mid-August to mid-September. So we've gotten the red out of the way there, but anywhere from the islands, east of the islands, into the Caribbean and Gulf, those are favored areas. And based on what we've seen since 1886, there have been 83 storms in 111 years. Most of the data points are really concentrated here in the Western Caribbean between Jamaica and Central America. But we do have several out here east of the islands and off to the south and southwest of Bermuda for the first 10 days of October. Let's show you the steering winds. One of the ingredients for development is the fact that we need light winds aloft or high pressure aloft up here around 35,000 feet. And we haven't seen a lot of that this season, and that's one of the reasons, one of the primary reasons why we haven't had a lot of hurricanes or tropical storms. Remember, it's really only been Danny, which affected Mobile and Baldwin counties in Alabama with some heavy rain, then kind of scooted off around Cape Cod in late July. That has been really our only brush with tropical weather so far in the eastern U.S. Westerly winds, the main culprit. That's a good sign if you don't like tropical weather, and certainly after 2 devastating years, we don't need any more storms or hurricanes. Winds blowing from west to east, wind shear, not favorable for development. Now we do have an upper low out here. We're going to watch that, but again, this is out in the middle of the Atlantic and doesn't hold much of a chance for developing, especially with what will be going on over the next couple of days. We do have an area of convection here, showers and thunderstorms. That's just a fancier word, convection. And you can see late this evening, rather nice enhancement there. You can see a rather circular shape, which would mean that maybe we have something trying to develop. But whatever does develop here will continue to move off to the northeast. This area is about 450 miles off to the south-southeast of the island of Bermuda. And again, Bermuda, you're looking okay, and it is all moving out of the way, even if this were to become something over the next day or so. Gulf of Mexico, quiet. We still have the low-level winds, though, from the water towards the land, and that has caused some showers and thunderstorms on Sunday. You had some rainfall around Houston, also around the Galveston area, back towards San Antonio, and that general low-level flow will continue as we get into Monday. Ridging may try to develop over the extreme western Caribbean and the Gulf in the upper levels the next few days, so that would make the environment a little bit more favorable. But as we just showed you, across this area, across the Caribbean, just a lot of westerly wind, and you can kind of pick that out if you look at some of the high clouds, how quickly they're moving from east to west. Basically, a very disorganized area of showers and thunderstorms, putting a crimp on your tanning weather, your vacationing or cruise weather, and bringing some locally heavy downpours. But none of this is organized. As you can see, it's just spotty areas of red and orange. By the way, the red and orange indicating the higher or colder cloud tops. Out in the Atlantic we go, and we look at the islands, the Leeward and Windward Islands down towards Trinidad and Tobago. All is clear tonight. We don't have any concerns over the next couple of days. We will monitor several areas that are flaring up tonight, but again, the environment is not favorable for development at this time. We have seen Olaf resurrected on Sunday. Remember, we had tropical Storm Olaf to a depression to nothing. Well, now it's back to a tropical depression out here well southwest of Cabo San Lucas, and it is continuing to move off to the east-northeast at 5 miles an hour, winds of 35 miles an hour, and it is not expected to cause any problems. It may regenerate some more, but again, it's moving away. Right now, it's not expected to move back towards land too closely, although again, it's back up to 35 miles an hour. It still doesn't want to die. We do have a new tropical depression, TD number 18, right here, packing winds of 35 miles an hour, expected to become a tropical storm in the next couple of days, but it's basically stationary. By the way, this is TD number 18, obviously in the eastern Pacific. If it does become a tropical storm, it will be Tropical Storm Pauline. We'll be following this for you, but again, over the next couple of days, expected to slowly strengthen, but remain basically in the same place. Looking out across the rest of the Pacific, at least over towards the Hawaiian Islands, a little bit of disturbed weather right here, not overly concerned with that. As you can see tonight, it's really not flaring up, it's kind of dying out. There's the Hawaiian Islands, and all is clear, just the low clouds associated with the cold weather.